There comes a point in your life when your heart feels like it's standing at the edge of a cliff, not because you want to jump, but because you're just tired. Tired of being the strong one. Tired of holding it together when no one else does. Tired of pretending you're fine when your soul is screaming for relief. You've built walls to protect yourself, but even those walls have started to crack. Because the truth is, even the strongest people silently break. And maybe, just maybe, you've reached the chapter in your life where Allah doesn't want you to carry it all alone anymore. Not every storm is meant to be weathered alone. Not every pain is meant to be buried. Sometimes, Allah sends someone, not to save you, but to remind you that you were never alone to begin with. You've walked through so many seasons alone, faced heartbreak with no one to lean on, wiped your own tears, talked to yourself in the dark, and whispered, "Ya Allah, just give me one sign, one soul who sees me." And yet, you kept going, not because it was easy, but because your heart knew there was something more, something coming. And now you've arrived at a moment where Allah is writing a new page for you, a softer page, a chapter of companionship, not based on appearances or status, but on soul and sincerity. This isn't a love story of the dunya. It's a love story rooted in the akhirah, where someone stronger than you steps in, not to take away your pain, but to hold your hand through it. The one who doesn't just say, "I'm here for you," but proves it in every sujood they make that includes your name. You, the warrior of silent battles. You are finally being sent someone who is not impressed by your strength, but moved by your heart. And in that moment, you will understand that when Allah chooses someone to walk beside you, it's never by accident. It's a divine appointment, written long before you were tired, long before you prayed, long before you even knew you needed them. And now, they're coming because Allah knows you've carried enough. Why one? The weight you've been carrying. You've worn strength like armor, not because you always felt strong, but because you had no choice. You became the shoulder for others, the one who picked up the shattered pieces after everyone else walked away. You held space for their pain, even when your own heart was running on empty. And now you're tired in places you didn't even know could feel. You scroll through your phone, wondering who you can text when it's you falling apart. But there's no one, not really. You tell yourself, "It's okay, I've got this." And you do, but barely. There's a loneliness in always being the strong one. The world claps for your resilience, but it never asks how much it's costing you. And then comes the guilt. You think, "I should be grateful. Others have it worse." So you bury your needs deeper. You laugh louder. You push harder. But inside, you're aching for someone, anyone, to just look at you and say, "You don't have to be strong right now. I've got you." Here's the truth. Even the strongest hearts need shelter. And Allah, the one who knows every breath your soul has taken in silence, is not blind to your exhaustion. In fact, it is in your quiet despair that He prepares relief. The Prophet Muhammad said, "Verily, with hardship comes ease." Not after hardship, with it. So maybe the heaviness isn't punishment. Maybe it's preparation. Maybe your soul is being softened to receive what it's long been deprived of. A person sent by Allah, carrying a kind of strength that doesn't demand anything from you, except that you finally rest, that you finally let someone pour into you, that you finally breathe. You are not weak for needing someone. You are human. And Allah created humans in pairs for a reason. 2. A dua you never spoke aloud. You didn't even say it out loud. It wasn't in words. It was in the way your voice trembled in the dark, in the way your hands lingered a little longer in sujood, in the way your eyes searched the sky as if waiting for a sign. It was that feeling of, "Ya Allah, I can't do this alone anymore." But the words never left your lips. You weren't sure they'd be heard. You weren't sure you deserved that kind of miracle. But He heard you. Not just the voice, He heard the soul. And that's the kind of dua that doesn't echo into emptiness. That's the kind that shakes the heavens. We often forget, Allah doesn't wait for us to be eloquent. He waits for us to be sincere. And you were so real in your silence that even the angels paused to carry your ache upward. Islam teaches us that Allah is closer than our jugular vein, that He responds before we speak. Before we even understand what our heart needs, He already knows. And when my servant asks you about me, indeed I am near. Quran 2:186. So what happens next isn't random. It's not coincidence. It's the unfolding of divine mercy. Allah is about to send someone who feels like the answer you never had the courage to ask for. Someone who recognizes your pain, not because you told them, but because they carry a similar ache. And together, you'll be healing in motion. This isn't about romance. This is about Rahmah. This is about Allah saying, I heard the dua you buried. Here is the soul who will help you bloom again. 3. The arrival of divine timing. You've waited, and with every passing day, you've asked yourself, why hasn't it come yet? You see others receive, others celebrate, and you're still holding your hands up to the sky, whispering to a silence that sometimes feels endless. But what if the silence was sacred? What if your waiting wasn't punishment, but preservation? We live in a world obsessed with now, but Allah operates in the realm of perfect, and perfection requires patience. The pain of delay feels like rejection, but in Islam, delay often means protection. And it may be that you dislike a thing which is good for you, Quran 2:16. You thought you were ready, but Allah knew the chapters you had yet to close, the wounds that still needed to scar over, the lessons your soul hadn't yet absorbed. And the one He's sending, they're on their own journey too. Their delays were aligned with yours, because this isn't just a meeting, it's a moment. One that had to be written in the stars long before your heart even began to ache. So when they arrive, you'll know. There will be no begging, no convincing, no forcing, just ease, just softness, just clarity. Because what is meant by Allah finds its way, always. And that's when you'll realize all that waiting wasn't empty. It was making space for something sacred. 4. You were never meant to carry this alone. There comes a moment when your hands tremble, not from weakness, but from carrying too much for too long. The kind of weight no one else sees, the kind you smile through, just to survive another day. And still you think, if I don't hold it all together, who will? So you keep going, even when your soul begs you to stop, even when your heart whispers, this isn't what you were created for. That's the lie we tell ourselves, that we have to do it all, be it all, hold it all. But the prophet, peace be upon him, didn't walk alone. He had companions who held his pain, who carried his grief, who stood beside him in silence and in sujud. So why do you believe you're less deserving of support? Islam doesn't ask us to be invincible. It invites us to be human, to lean on one another as we lean on Allah. The believers are but brothers, Quran 49:10. That's not just a verse, it's a divine reminder. You were created for connection, not isolation. And the one Allah is sending your way, they won't see your need as a burden, they'll see it as a trust, a sacred responsibility to honor your softness, to remind you that being strong doesn't mean never falling. It means allowing someone to catch you when you do. And in that moment, when you finally let someone in, you'll realize you were never weak. You were just tired. And now, you're about to rest in the kind of love that heals through mercy. 5. They will recognize your soul, not just your smile. You've mastered the art of pretending. Perfect smile, perfect tone, perfect timing, and yet no one sees you. Not really. They admire your accomplishments, applaud your resilience, but no one asks, what's breaking behind that smile? You've been surrounded by people who saw your light, but never your shadows. They loved the version of you that made them comfortable, but they couldn't hold space for the depth of your soul. So you stopped showing that side, the parts that weep after midnight, the fears that sit quietly beside your dreams. You buried it, all of it. But Allah, He doesn't let sincere souls remain unseen. He honors the ones who carry light and darkness with dignity. And sometimes, he sends someone who sees it all. The Quran speaks of hearts that recognize one another. He created for you mates from yourselves. Quran 30:21. From yourself, your essence, your unseen. This person won't be impressed by your facade. They'll see straight through it, to the heart behind your words, to the courage behind your pain, and they'll honor it like an amana from Allah. They won't fix you, they'll witness you, and that is where the real healing begins. You've spent years being too much or too deep for people who couldn't understand your fire. Now, Allah is sending someone who will dance with your flame and never try to put it out. 6. A love that points you back to Allah. You've tasted love that distracted you, that pulled you further from your salah, that made you question your worth, instead of reminding you where it comes from, and it broke you in ways that only your sajda could hold. So you vowed, never again. You thought maybe love was just a test you kept failing. Maybe it wasn't meant for you. Maybe it was safer to just keep your heart locked in a fortress of solitude. But then, Allah whispers a new kind of love into your destiny, not one that replaces Him, but one that reflects Him. This person will not compete with your worship. They'll nurture it. They'll remind you of Fajr with softness in their voice. They'll speak the language of the soul, Quran, dua, remembrance. Because real love in Islam is not about losing yourself in someone else. It's about finding someone who helps you find yourself in Allah again. The most beloved people to Allah are those who bring benefit to others. And this person, they will be a mercy to your existence. They'll celebrate your Deen, not tolerate it. They'll elevate your spirit, not question it. And you will both walk the path together, falling, rising, and always returning to the one who wrote your names beside each other long before you met. Because the best kind of love is the kind that pulls you closer to Jannah. You'll finally breathe without explaining yourself. You've been misunderstood more times than you can count. People love the version of you they could label. But the moment you became unexplainable, too quiet, too deep, too intense, they backed away. You tried to fit into boxes. You laughed at jokes that pierced your soul. You nodded in silence when your heart was screaming for someone to ask, "Are you okay?" But no one did. So you learned to explain yourself, your tears, your dreams, your faith, your boundaries. You carried this quiet exhaustion of being too much and not enough. But Allah saw it all, and He promised, indeed, the ones who have believed and done righteous deeds, the most merciful will appoint for them affection. Quran 1996. Affection, not just love, a gentle presence that will never ask you to shrink. A soul that will sit with you in your silence and understand. This person will not ask you to decode yourself. They'll listen without interruption. They'll see without assumptions. They'll stay without conditions. And in their presence, you'll breathe like you haven't in years. A breath that doesn't need a backstory. A breath that says, you are safe here, as you are. That kind of love, that's not from the dunya. That's from a Lord who knew your heart needed rest. Not in more people, but in someone sent. 8. Let go, so it can arrive. You're still clutching the fragments, the could-have-beens, the almosts, the people you begged to stay, and the love you never received in return. You call it memory, but it's really a wound you keep touching, just to make sure you still feel something. And yet, deep down, you know. What you're holding on to is blocking what Allah wants to give you. But letting go feels like losing, like surrendering, like giving up on the only story you thought could ever make sense. Still, Allah tells you gently, perhaps you hate something and it is good for you. Quran 2:16. You're not being asked to forget. You're being asked to make room, to loosen your grip on what was so you can receive what is written. Letting go isn't defeat. It's a door. It's trust. It's handing your brokenness to the one who never wastes a single tear. The person coming? They couldn't walk in while your heart was still rented out to regret. They needed your soul to be free, to be ready, to be empty enough to be filled with divine mercy. And when you finally release, you'll see it. The unfolding, the ease, the soul who fits you like a dua you never finish saying. 9. This is not the end of your story. You felt like your story ended years ago. Like joy was something that belonged to a younger version of you. Like your best moments lived in the rearview mirror, while you're just surviving page after page of quiet suffering. But listen, your story is not over. You are not done. And Allah doesn't leave His servant halfway through their healing. You may have gone through the chapter of heartbreak, of loss, of abandonment, but that was never your ending. That was the middle, the valley before the climb. Islam is the religion of hope, of resurrection, of dry hearts being revived by rain. Do not lose hope in the mercy of Allah. Indeed, Allah forgives all sins. Quran 39:53. And if He can forgive all sins, He can also restore all souls. Yours too. The one coming into your life will not just be a companion. They'll be a sign that Allah still writes new beginnings, that your tears weren't wasted, that the pain served a purpose. And when they arrive, it won't just feel like love, it will feel like redemption. Like Allah saying, see, I was saving the best part of the story for later. So turn the page. You're about to witness the most beautiful sentence ever written in your book. And it starts with mercy, ends in peace, and lives forever in your soul. So if these words stirred something in your heart, don't let them fade into the background noise of the day. Pause, breathe, reflect. This was never just a video. It was a moment between your soul and the one who created it. If you've been waiting, aching, praying for someone who finally understands your silence, know this. Allah heard you before you ever spoke. And if He placed this message in front of you, perhaps it's because your heart is being prepared for something sacred, for someone sent. So don't rush, don't settle, and above all, don't lose hope in the love that is still unfolding. If this brought you comfort, subscribe to stay connected. Share this with someone whose soul is weary, someone who needs to know they are not forgotten. Leave a comment below and let your voice be part of the healing. This is more than content. It's a community of seekers walking toward Allah together. And now, beloved soul, carry this with you gently. You are not too broken. You are not too late. What is meant for you, written by the divine, is already on its way. Let go of what dimmed you, so you can rise into what completes you. Until next time, may your nights be full of whispers to Allah, and your days be filled with the peace that only He can give. Take care, stay soft, and remember, your story isn't over yet. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.